Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. All right. So met with patient May 20th, 2020. Patient indicated that he had COVID-19 in March of 2020. He had a Vibrant Health Labs with a positive IgG level. He said he had a really bad reaction to the virus. First started with a fever of 107, then it slowly subsided. In about 10 days, he started to feel a little bit better, went back to work, and then he had a surge in symptoms. He said he lost his appetite, had to force himself to eat, very fatigued, lost 15 pounds in 6 weeks. He didn't have a cough, but did have significant shortness of breath. He said it felt like it took all he could to talk. He said he tried to jog the other day, but then his legs got really sore. Let me fix that.
Actually, I just about lost 30 pounds because I was at 215. And
Oh, wow.
down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Change that. His appetite is finally back, but as you indicated just before, that you're still working your way there. He said he was on the ketogenic diet and still is on the ketogenic diet, tries to stay away from sugar the best he can. He said when he talks for a long time, he'll still get the shortness of breath. None of his family got infected during the whole process. He has taken quite a few nutrients throughout this process and still does. Some zinc, glutathione, N-acetylcysteine, vitamin E, vitamin D, vitamin A, selenium. He said he felt like the virus in total probably lasted about a month. He is getting IV vitamin C's. He said usually about 15 grams at a time. He said his number one complaint right now is shortness of breath and fatigue, especially when he exercises. Diabetes does run on both sides of his family. He's never experienced it to his knowledge. Before all this started, he said he's actually doing really well. He did get the flu 3 times in 2019, but he was able to kick them pretty easily within 72 hours. He said he was taking some essential oils at that time as well, which probably helped. He has discussed treatments with other doctors, such as Dr. Ching, who has helped him kind of navigate the vitamin C world. The patient does have a history of asthma, which may be the reason why he got hit so severely with this particular virus. We did listen to his lungs in office. So they were clear. Heart had regular rate and rhythm. Eyes, ears, nose, and throat looked good as well. At this point in time, we do believe the patient is suffering from post-viral syndrome. We did talk about the stress response. The patient was able to get through the acute phase of the COVID-19 infection with natural treatments and IV vitamin C. He's now suffering from what we believe is exhaustion from the virus. We want to start by just adding in a few things to help with the vitality of the patient for now. Adrenatone, if the patient does not improve on this product, we will introduce Eleuthero root. We'll look into adrenal liquescence, which is a homeopathic preparation, and bronchial health as an herbal or botanical. We would like the patient to nebulize glutathione daily, as we believe that will help. We do want to run a small blood chemistry just to make sure everything's looking good and follow up once we have these results. So anything there that we missed before we jump into your blood results?
That just the weight loss of weight that
Was more significant.
Yeah.
Okay. It's only been a little bit of time, right? It's only been about a week or so, but what have you done over the past week? And so like one thing you mentioned to me was physical activity. The legs kind of felt like really sore and heavy. Have you tried to jog or do anything like that since we last left off?
I haven't. Yesterday, I felt kind of weird. I felt like I got like a real bad headache.
Okay.
And then I just wasn't feeling too full of energy. I don't know what it was. I checked my temperature, it was around 99. I was laying off the zinc for a while,
Okay.
not taking it as much, but then I went ahead and took some and took 2 doses within a 4-hour time, and the fever went away, and the headache started to go away. So it wasn't really a fever, just 99. I don't know if 99 is even a fever, but
And then how many vitamin C treatments have you had since we last left off?
I do them once a day at 15 grams.
Okay, so you're doing those every day?
Yeah. I don't trust this virus. I don't know what it can do. It does different things to different people. So.
Sure.
Really, this virus really changes your, I don't know, it's your psyche or something. It kind of like makes you try to feel really depressed and stuff.
Sure.
And it's weird that I've never been like that.
One of the reasons why you're experiencing that, we could just kind of jump into the blood work now, is you do have iron deficiency.
Iron deficiency.
Yep. So whether that's caused by the virus or not at this point in time, and you'll have you could take this home.
Okay.
And I'll give you a pen if you want to write some notes as well. So nice and colorful and pretty. So the first thing we see here is we have low iron levels. So this is serum iron, right?
Okay.
So this is the iron that's floating around your bloodstream. So we have iron level at 33, which for a male is pretty significant as far as how low it is. Because unless you've cut yourself or you've had a car accident and lost a lot of blood or something like that, there's no reason for a male to lose iron, right? So females lose blood every month through their period. So sometimes we'll see iron anemia with females that have really heavy periods, or maybe they come too frequently. So when an adult male who obviously doesn't have their period shows up with iron anemia, it's something we take pretty seriously, because it's like, well, why is that the case, right? So I can't right now exactly answer why. I could just tell you that that's what we're dealing with.
And what are the what's the
Symptoms?
symptoms?
So symptoms from iron anemia can range from just absolute fatigue, right, which is probably the most common. Some people will get dizziness from it. Some people will lose their appetite. Iron is also necessary to create a hormone in your brain called dopamine,
Okay.
which helps with your motivation, your drive, and desire. So that could be some of the emotional stuff that you're talking about.
Now, can I ask you?
Yeah.
Can this iron depletion be because of the virus? I mean, because prior to that, I never had no motivation problems.
Sure.
But then again, I never had a blood check.
Exactly. So, yes, technically, any virus can actually cause viral a depletion of iron, and that has to do with the inflammatory process. But from what we can tell right now, the inflammatory process is minimal in your body.
Is it?
So this could be something that predated the virus, and the virus made it worse. Maybe you maybe exacerbated it, and or maybe it's always been like this, and you didn't notice it because there wasn't that extra pressure of a virus in your system.
Right.
Again, it's hard for me to comment on that because we don't have a historical,
Right.
data set of your iron levels.
Right.
If you go home for some reason, you find blood work from 3 years ago and they tested your iron, then we could start conversing about when this iron may or may not have kind of gotten out of whack.
I never had a blood test to this extent. It
Gotcha,
was always
okay.
just checking
Just quick stuff.
my kidneys, heart, and all that stuff.
But this could absolutely cause the leg fatigue as well. So marathon runners, long distance runners, they'll commonly come into the office and they'll say, hey, I can do the first mile. I feel fantastic. Then all of a sudden it feels like I just hit a brick wall. Like I can't go any further. And that's because they're low iron status. You're going to have a hard time moving oxygen around the body when we have low iron. So when those muscles are pumping, when they're demanding more energy, more oxygen, you're not going to be able to deliver it because your iron's going to be kind of low.
So wow. Okay. So in your world, these stats right here, shows you that you guys can get that fixed right away once we get these levels up.
Correct. As long as we can figure out why the iron is low. Now, sometimes we just do that by treatment, so we don't always test extensively to find out why the iron's low. If it doesn't come up, then that's when we definitely start looking for it. So today we'll probably give you a little iron.
Okay.
And we'll see if that helps your energy. And sometimes it's night and day. Like some folks with iron anemia, like 15 issues that they're dealing with are all from iron. There's other folks that get minor benefit from getting their iron into normal range. We'll just have to see which side of the fence you're on with that.
Okay.
The cool part about iron is it's super cheap. It's like $8 for a bottle, and it could literally be life changing. So a lot of the stuff that you're complaining about still, it could be because you're low iron.
Now, what about my blood? As far as it didn't look like it had any issues with blood clotting or anything.
So I'll show you that, and again, some of this is skewed by probably the vitamin C levels that you have. So we may actually recommend that you back off a little bit on the vitamin C, and I'll show you why here in just a second.
Okay.
So iron is kind of low, and we'll go through all these markers here in a sec, but I wanted to go through these the highlights. So iron is low at 33. So then we also like to look at the saturation level of your iron. It kind of just tells us what the iron is doing within the bloodstream when we look at it combined with its protein carrier.
Okay.
And right now we have low saturation levels as well. So it doesn't really tell us anything new. We already knew you had the low iron, but we do have confirmation that saturation is low as well at 11%. So sometimes that's a better marker for iron anemia than just your serum iron levels. Now, the interesting thing is, whenever we have low iron, we normally see a protein version of iron called ferritin that's low. In your case, we actually have really high levels of ferritin, even though the iron is low. So what that turns into is basically an inflammatory marker. So when we have elevated ferritin, we know that this is part of the inflammatory cascade. So most of the time it's coming from the liver because that's where ferritin is manufactured essentially. So right now we do have one inflammatory marker called ferritin. The cool part is some of the other inflammatory markers we ran, such as C-reactive protein, are completely normal. So I don't believe there's this head-to-toe inflammatory process going on in your body, but there is some level of inflammation that we just need to keep an eye on.
Okay. Now the ferritin, how do you go about lowering that or countering it? Should I say?
So ferritin isn't really something that you give something for. It just tells us that X is going on in the body.
Okay.
So a lot of what we'll do now is going to be foundational. We're going to try and drag this back to the roots and see if we can fix the actual problem rather than going through and cherry picking and giving you things for each chemistry on this profile. So right now ferritin is not elevated out of range, but high because your iron is low. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So
what you're saying is once you get the iron back to where it should be, this should lower?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So this could be unlinked from your iron.
I get
That's
you.
why we're looking at this as an inflammatory marker instead of a marker of iron absorption. So let's go back to the first patient and just kind of go from head to toe. I wanted to show you the iron at first because I think that's going to be a big part of your case. So first thing is your CBC, your complete blood count. You've probably seen this a couple times in the past with some other practitioners. First thing we look at is white blood cells. Now this is just total white blood cells. This isn't very specific as to all the different white blood cells or lymphocytes that your body has. It's just the total group of them. Right now, 9.1. Some folks would say that's on the higher end of normal, but still within normal range. Your red blood cells look pretty good at 4.53, so that's good to see because sometimes with long-term iron anemia, we'll start to see the red blood cells come down.
Okay.
But we don't see that at this point in time, which is good. Hemoglobin is part of the red blood cell complex, helps to carry oxygen around the body. Hematocrit, MCV, and MCHC. We start to look at the size and color of the red blood cell. Is it really small and pale? Is it really large and dark? Right now, we're starting to see, which is also interesting, that you are on the kind of the larger side of the red blood cell, so V for volume, 95, high end is 97. This usually indicates some level of B vitamin anemia. So one of the things we may recommend, because I know you go for IVs, I don't know if they have the ability to, but maybe we'll have to put a little B vitamins.
They give the B vitamins in the IVs.
Already?
Yeah, already.
So, okay.
So I might have to do something orally.
Yeah, you might have to just kind of bolster that with a little bit of oral.
Now the hemoglobin, 14.9. What is that? Is that good? Normal range?
Yeah, the 14.9 is fine. One would argue, again, lower end to normal, but nothing that, we don't go through these in a case like yours and kind of like with a fine-tooth comb try and tweak these things, a tenth of a point here, a tenth of a point there. Right now what we're doing is taking like the 5,000-foot view and seeing, okay, what's the big message with this guy? What seems to be going on? RDW has to do with the distribution width, meaning we look at basically how chronic the different red blood cell patterns are. Right now, 14.8 is fine. Platelets help your blood to clot. They release some hormones. They're part of the inflammatory cascade. 165, a little bit on the lower end of normal. Again, not something really to worry about just yet. Neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, and eosinophils and basophils. These are all different kinds of white blood cells, and all of those check out to be okay.
Okay.
We went over your iron already.
Yeah.
This is your immunoglobulin profile. Some of this might look familiar because you had the immunoglobulin COVID test through Vibrant Labs. Now, this isn't specific to any particular bacteria or virus.
Okay.
This is just looking at your total immunoglobulin pool, and we look at 4 of them commonly clinically: G, A, M, and E. And they all do a little bit something different for us. In your case, we were very curious at G, and we were very curious at M, and we'll go over E and A as well. Your immunoglobulin G should be your most numerous immunoglobulin, and this guy's at 750, which is on the lower end, right? So we could be looking at someone who's been depleted. They've been using a lot of these antibodies, maybe possibly through the infectious process, trying to knock it down, or potentially you run a little bit low on the antibodies. It's hard to say, again, because this is the first time we've seen this particular profile. But I will tell you, with all of the immunoglobulin profiles we run, I would say that guy's a little bit lower than I like to see it.
Okay.
So we definitely want to try and get that guy up.
Okay. And what do we do about getting that up?
There's a few different things that you can take. You can actually take immunoglobulins in their whole form.
Okay.
There's arguments as to whether or not those make it through the digestive tract and into the bloodstream. There's other products that you could take to try and stimulate your own body's immunoglobulin production, which we may do for you.
Okay.
The next one is immunoglobulin A, and this is present in mucous membranes like the lungs, the gastrointestinal tract, the nose. So we were also interested in this because naturally you had an upper respiratory virus, the COVID-19 virus or SARS-CoV-2. So immunoglobulin A at 247 is actually excellent, so that looks really good. Immunoglobulin M is probably the least numerous immunoglobulin out of the top three.
Okay.
And that's going to be around in acute situations. So we don't necessarily need to see that really high. So 63 looks really good. And immunoglobulin E is part of like your allergic response.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have an allergy, a lot of times immunoglobulin E will be elevated. 51 looks great. Some would argue that it's a little bit high. They just changed the reference ranges recently, but I think 51 is fine for what you're dealing with.
Okay.
We did talk a little bit about diabetes. You did mention that there was some of that floating around in the family.
Yes.
You do fall into the kind of pre-diabetic category right now, which is interesting because you said you kind of do keto, and keto usually really helps with that. So again, I don't know if this is actually improving. Maybe this was 5.9, 6, and it's actually getting better with the diet, and or if you are just running a little bit higher with your sugar. So 5.7 does break the threshold into the pre-diabetic category. Kind of joke around with folks and say like you can't be half pregnant, right? So it